Good afternoon and welcome to our Smartees webinar on co-creating concepts and ideas, from making people want things to making things people want. Who are your hosts today? Well, I'm Tom de Ruyck and I'm Head of Research Communities here at InSites Consulting, meaning that I'm responsible for what we do in terms of research communities for our 5 offices. And with me is Thomas.
Hi everyone, welcome to this session. I am Thomas, I'm Senior Research Innovator at InSites, where I focus on online research communities and applying them in innovation projects.
All right, so now that you know who's here for you, let's start with the first case or first illustration. I think this one is rather interesting. Polaroid and the history of Polaroid. Once they were one of the great companies when it comes to photography. Now they are just not around anymore. On the other hand, we have Instagram, which is sold to Facebook for $1 billion. And if you look at it a little bit more closely, it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same idea. The one guys, Polaroid, are not around anymore, and the guys from Instagram are lying at the beach and celebrating their good deal, or the good deal they made with Mark Zuckerberg. And I think it's just about evolving. It's just about reinventing yourself all the time and making sure you are in peace with the current trends and you are contemporary as a brand. So where do $1 billion ideas come from? Well, if you look at what people most of the time think, they think it's about bringing together special people in special places, and then you will come up with special ideas, ideas that are very successful and let's say $1 billion ideas. And we can think of great places like R&D labs, where people come up with great new technologies, or where very smart scientists are creating great new things or products. Or we can think of very creative environments where marketing people come up with breakthrough things that will change and disrupt the whole product category. But is that really true? That if you bring together great people and you create the perfect environment for them, that they will come up with breakthrough ideas? We don't think so. We don't think so if we look at the stats you see now on the screen, where we see that for every 4 projects that enter a development phase, only 1 will make it to the market. And of the ones that are launched, so the ones that make it to the market, 1 out of 3 is failing, and that's at least. There are figures that say that 3 out of 4 are even failing. So despite all the energy that is put into it, all the investments that are made, the deep research, the great planning, a lot of projects fail when you bring them to the market. So what we ask to ourselves is, why is that the case? Despite the great people, despite the great environments in which those people work, despite all the investments that are made, a lot of innovations fail when you launch them. So what are we doing wrong? And we found inspiration in this quote from Anna Kira, which is ex-Microsoft. And she says, we come up with technology, then find a use, and try to invent meaning through advertising and communication. And she says, what we need to do is we have to push meaning to the beginning. And I think she's absolutely right. We don't need to start from the great science, the great technology. We don't need to start from the great people at the very inspiring places. No, we first need to listen to the consumer and see what they actually want and need. Thomas, can you tell us a little bit more about that one?
Of course, and it's really interesting to see how consumers are actually already creating meaning themselves from the beginning. And the creativity they apply in creating this meaning is, as you will discover in a bit, is really to DIY for. So a first observation of this consumer creativity is how they are refining the products and improving them for their own usage. And examples can go from improving the speakers from iPhone, the speaker on the back from the iPad, to adding fresh ingredients to a canned soup, for example. But another example here, they're not only refining products, they're also redefining products. In this example, you see how they are using a product for something completely different than it was actually intended to. So here, an empty tissue box, which you would throw away, is actually being used as a container for the used tissues. Again, clearly solving and anticipating an unmet consumer need. So far, they are just doing this for themselves and for their own usage, but there are also examples where consumers are really competing with brands. Most of you probably know Airbnb, which is actually a platform where consumers can rent out a spare room they have, and thus they are competing with hotels in a way. They're not only copying the hotel format, but they're actually going beyond the hotel format by providing a unique personal approach. You really live in somebody's home together with them, and they can provide great recommendations for the city you're visiting. And those of you who think that new product categories like the mountain bike, like the skateboard, are developed in those hidden and secret R&D labs which Tom just described are actually wrong, because the mountain bike is a great example of how users of bikes, how bikers in Northern California were actually tinkering with bike parts and adapting these different types of bikes for off-road biking. And first at very small scale, but later on, when they saw that things were happening, things were moving, it took 15 years for the big bike companies to actually jump on this emerging new category. And now 30 years later, mountain bikes are actually responsible for 65% of the sales in the bike category. So different examples from refining to redefining products, but they're also competing with brands and creating new categories of products. And what these examples all have in common is that consumers are creative. So they have the skills, some consumers, which I'll discuss in a bit, they have the skills to come up with solutions for their unfulfilled needs. But what these examples also have in common is that they're still solving their own issues. So we could ask ourselves, how about solving problems in a business context? Are consumers also willing to help you out with your everyday challenges? And what do we see from our social media around the world study is that 80% of consumers is actually willing to start a co-creation journey with you. The only thing they want in return to be part of your team is that you give them feedback, that they are involved and they feel that they truly have an impact on your innovation, on the new services, the new products you are developing. So how can we actively involve consumers in innovation? We see two ways. The first is completely based on reach. You can post an open challenge on social media and crowdsource a lot of ideas. So here you have a reach of a huge consumer base, but there's no true interaction and you still have a little bit of a top level way of generating ideas. On the other hand, the other extreme is co-creation, where you really focus on the richness, on an in-depth collaboration with a smaller group of consumers, and when you can find a balance between not only consumer ideas and consumer needs, but also strategic objectives of the company. So this is a way where these two sides completely merge together, and that's why we will focus on co-creation. When we talk about co-creation and different methods or approaches in which we can collaborate with consumers, market research communities are one of the popular approaches, with 36% of online consumers preferring to participate in an online research community which is branded. Again, the reason behind the popularity of this methodology is the short feedback loops and the close interaction between participants, between consumers and brand, which is a key intrinsic motivator for participants to start such a journey. And when we talk about online research communities, what are we actually talking about? Well, an online research community is a small group of 50 to 150 people, not just any people, not a representative sample of people, but people who are highly engaged. If you remember the examples before of people who are already coming up with solutions for problems themselves, these are the people we actually involve in an online research community. So they are joined together by this common passion on a certain topic or their identification with a certain brand for at least 3 weeks. So for a longer period of time where we can truly fit the iterative approach of an innovation funnel. And we not only select them based on their passion, based on their willingness to think along, but we also engage them by applying various social media techniques, which are actually triggering co-creation, ideation, and which are also evoking them to share as much of their own experience as possible so we can place all the ideas they generate in context. So we know that consumers are creative. We know that through online research communities, they find a preferred or a popular approach of doing this. So how do we make this happen? How can we guarantee successful co-creation? And I'd like to talk you through these steps by discussing a project we have done together with Air France and KLM. And we see, of course, just like in any project, to be successful, it's really important to define your objective. That's the starting point. And this is no different in a co-creation or an ideation project. In this case, the solution space for Air France and KLM was a transfer experience. So they were actually looking for ways to improve the transfer journey of their frequent flyers. And the transfer journey is a period or the phase between two connecting flights, which is typically a moment that is characterized by a lot of negative emotions. So it's really important to provide something positive, something delightful in this journey. So it's not only important to understand the needs and the frictions, but also to generate ideas together with frequent flyers, because this is a really complex situation where you have a lot of different partners, the airline, the airport, the legal part, which is checking you, coming together. So first of all, it's important to define your solution space. And once we've defined this objective, we can start looking for partners in crime. And inherent to the methodology of online research communities, we are looking for people who are interesting and interested. So people who identify with the topic. In this case, frequent flyers of Air France and KLM. This is typical to any online research community, but in an ideation and concept development community, we also distinguish between innovators and influentials. So within this group of people who are highly identified, who are highly involved, we look for people who are an innovator or an influential. So who are these people and how can we find them? First of all, you remember the difference between people who are low involved and high involved. Let's forget a bit about the bottom half, because the people who we are involving in our active co-creation are the ones on the top of this scheme, people who are highly involved. And then we differentiate between people who are socially independent and they focus on product features and characteristics, and others who are characterized by their interpersonal influence. So they have a lot of influence in a certain category in their environment. So we have the independent innovators who can generate more out-of-the-box ideas, and then we also have the social influencers who can also generate ideas, but more importantly, they can comment and further build on the ideas of the innovators to actually fine-tune them and make them more relevant for a mass market. It's important to note that when we talk about innovators and influentials, you're not just an innovator or uninfluential, you're always an innovator within a certain category. So in this case, we were looking for frequent flyers, so innovators within the category of travel. We also take this category a little bit broader, so they have a lot of different experiences which they can use to generate a clash of ideas. To give you another example, in a project for Friesland Campina, which was about ideas of new applications for milk, we were not only looking for people who identified or had a high usage of milk, but in a broader category, people who had a high involvement in the category of non-alcoholic beverages, for example. Okay, so we've defined the goals, we found our partners in crime, and then of course it's time to brief them. Again, like in any good project, a thorough briefing is where it all starts. So we have a live session with smaller groups of participants where we can have an interactive session to clarify the objective, to introduce the brand and give some background information, but to also develop a wheel of opportunities, as we like to call it. And this wheel of opportunities is actually a list of ingredients, so the different elements they can play with. In a project about snacks, that can go from packaging to the shape, to the temperature, to the point of sale, to the size, to the different ingredients. So we give them actually, or we co-create with them during this session, a wide array of tools or of ingredients which they can use to build ideas. And this is also engaging them when they come up with an idea to take it beyond the obvious and to also think of different elements to play with, especially when we move to fine-tuning the ideas. And then, of course, after this interactive briefing session where they can also ask questions, we join all together the innovators, the influentials, the InSites team, and the company team, in this case, the innovation team of Air France and KLM. We join forces on this online research community, which is not only about generating ideas, although this is, of course, an important objective, but it's also about sharing experiences and discussing trends to really have this continuous flow of inspiration. And also a continuous flow of new design or new creative challenges. And as you can see, we're not just posting new challenges or posting inspiration and trends ourselves, but by using and integrating multimedia features, projective techniques like personas, we're actually moving beyond the current friction. So they're not only solving the problems they encounter in a transfer process, but they're also coming up with solutions for personas in fictive scenarios. And all this inspiration is actually used to challenge them to, in a first stage, generate as much ideas as possible, and then in a second stage to try to improve all the ideas. So how do we actually facilitate this, or how do we trigger participants to generate as much ideas as possible? Therefore, we have our challenges in our ideation tool. And it's really important to note that we don't just ideate, we don't just develop concepts or ideas to improve the transfer experience, but we also always base such an ideation, such a co-creation project on insights, on knowledge from previous research, on these solution spaces which are predefined. So in this ideation tool, we actually feed back the different insights, we describe them, so we introduce participants to the finding, and then we challenge them to come up with solutions in this timed ideation challenge. So they have a countdown, and they see every second pass, for example, 2 days for an ideation challenge, and then they can post in the first stage as much ideas as possible. And then, once you have the idea, every idea is actually the starting point for a real jam. So they can start commenting on each other's ideas to improve them and to build further up them, to combine different ideas together. And as an idea is further developing, we also see the status changing. So the status of the idea is actually gamified. Every idea has a badge, and as an idea improves based on the likes, based on the comments that participants share to improve it, the status of the idea changes from mining to rough diamond to polished diamond to a diamond ring. And this approach, instead of just granting badges to the individual in a gamification approach, we actually gamify the idea, and this is really in line with collaborative effort. So all the ideas are property of the group, and we're all there to improve each other's ideas. And step 5 in this phase, so in the first stage we generate as much ideas as possible, and in a parallel way we're actually improving and building further on all the ideas. And in the third stage we have a qualitative pre-selection, so the ideas which in a judging round has the highest appeal, the diamond status ideas, or the ideas where the company really says, okay, this is there is something more, this is matching our strategic objectives. These are the ideas that are further developed, like you can see in the example, in a concept board. They're visualized by an industrial designer in our team, and thus provide like an additional level of feedback. So these are fed back to the community, which is also an incentive to the participants, because they have their ideas visualized, taking further to the next level. And in addition, the company, the brand, can also share some of their own ideas, either ideas they had from workshops before the project or from the inspiration they gathered during this co-creative journey. And these two can then indeed be commented on and be further developed in this last stage on the community. And this is probably how you feel by now. Oh no, this is so scary. I won't have control. I don't know the outcome up front. I have to let go of what I do in my daily job. That's my job, generating ideas. Will consumers replace me? And will the ideas actually be relevant for the mass market? Are these ideas relevant? So indeed, this is kind of a scary situation. And that's why we're not just having consumers generate ideas, but we are really co-creating. Because our worst nightmare would be something like this, the Homer car, which is probably completely suiting the needs of Homer, but when you would bring this on the market, and in the cartoon they did, it would make the Powell Motors company go bankrupt, because there are no other people interested in such a project. So this is the worst nightmare, but this is not a result of co-creation. The result of co-creation is really combined effort, where we join the ideas that are solving the needs, the frictions consumers encounter with the strategic objectives of the company and the ideas of the company. And there are two elements that are crucial in this collaborative effort. And the first of all is involvement. So there's really high involvement before, during, and after such a project, from frequent brief and debrief sessions during the project to also offline workshops, as you can see in the picture, at the key moments before, during, and after the project, where we really come together and co-create based on the input from consumers, based on the insights we have gathered, and take it to the next level, but then also feed it back to the consumer. So we have this iterative loop, and we can really take advantage of consecutive learning effects of this longitudinal way of collaborating. So the involvement is there to guarantee success during the project, but then of course we also have to create a lot of engagement. And I think here it's really important that we generate a lot of ideas in such a project. And in the qualitative pre-selection, we take some ideas to the next level. The high potential ideas, we take them to the next level. But there is actually truth or a solution to a friction or a need in every one of the ideas that are generated. So we like to challenge ourselves to give every idea the attention it needs by integrating them into concepts and sharing them at the end of the project in a sort, as you see here, for example, in a deck of ID cards. So the Air France KLM team, the innovation team, they're really using this, and every single meeting they start by discussing one of these concept boards, discussing them and taking a look at, okay, what is the what can we do with it? What can maybe we don't take this idea to the next level, but we can change something about our communication or improve a current service to anticipate on this need from our consumers. So what does this whole approach really add up to, Tom?
Yeah, I think that's the real question, because we have now seen why it's important to involve consumers if you innovate, that it's not only about great people, great places, and that will bring the 1 million or $1 billion ideas to the table. Thomas, you explained very well, I think, how we find those consumers, how we deal with them during the project, how it's about a combination of the people at the client side and the great and creative consumers in our communities. But indeed, the most important question is, what will it bring? And will this bring a better solution to the table, or will the products that come out of this stream be better and more successful in the market than the ones that are created without this stream of thought? So the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and I think if you want to really notice, what you need to do is validate the concepts that come out of the different streams. And that's exactly what we have done together with the people at Heinz. We actually asked the people internally, the marketing people, the R&D people, to come up with new ideas for cold sauces as a category. We also asked the people in our communities to do the same. We asked it to just ordinary consumers, and we asked it to consumers, let's say, with special powers, the innovators and the influentials, as we call them. And then all the ideas that came out of those three streams were put on one big pile and were turned into a concept screener, a quantitative validation of all the ideas, all the concepts among a representative set of the population. What do we actually see? Well, first of all, we see that our innovators and influentials perform better than the ordinary consumers when it comes to relevance, which is, of course, for us the most important thing. So that's an important remark already, the fact that we work with a specific type of consumers, innovators and influentials, seems to be a good idea. It's not about just involving any consumer, it's about involving that consumer that has special powers. But then the big question is it worth the time, the effort, and of course the money, the investment to involve consumers instead of just working within the company on your own? And what we see is that when it comes to uniqueness, the level of breakthroughness of an idea, we see that within the top 10, the people within the company score pretty high. So yes, creative spaces and creative, bright people bring up very unique breakthrough ideas. But the problem with most of those ideas is that they are so unique and so breakthrough that a lot of consumers don't understand what it's all about. And that's what we see when we take a look at relevance. If we look at relevance, we see that ideas that were fine-tuned, were brought to the table by consumers, score very high and score higher. We almost see that the ranking is almost reversed. So are consumers capable of coming up with very unique and breakthrough ideas? No, I don't think so, or not really. Are, on the other hand, marketeers capable of immediately sensing if something will do well in the market? No, I don't think so. Therefore, they need consumers to fine-tune ideas, to bring more consumer relevant ideas to the table. So I think the real power is in combining both, and that's what we clearly do in our methodology. So indeed, involving consumers will bring more successful ideas, concepts, and products to the table. But the power is in bringing both ends of the spectrum together. Another thing that we tested together with Heinz is what does it bring to the table if we not only do it, but we also talk about it. So in the same concept screener, we had one particular concept on which we had a claim co-created together with consumers are created based on the input from consumers. And we had an A/B test, so we also had the same pack without that claim. What do we see? That the product with the claims, the concept with the claim, scores higher on perceived consumer relevance and scores higher on unpriced buying intention. So this means that it not only works, so you get more consumer relevant products, you get more successful products out of this type of co-creation. So yes, it works. And if you talk about it, you will even reinforce this effect. And that's, I think, a very interesting learning. So we know why we need to go to consumers. We know how to do it, and we know that it will work out. It's a proven fact almost. So now you think this is too good to be true. So there are all products that people launch that are based on this methodology, that are co-created together with the people within the company and consumers. Will they all be successful? And of course the answer is no. Or the answer is not if they are not followed up upon. Because innovation, I think, is not only about generating great ideas and validating them among a representative set of the population. It's also about implementing them in a successful way and improving them continuously. Otherwise, you end as Polaroid in the very first slide. So we think that in order to have a great innovation, it's not only about finding the best possible methodology to generate ideas. It's also about finding great insights that you can use to ideate from, together with the people in the communities, together with your employees within the company. It's also about, afterwards, when you have that idea, bringing it to the market, making sure that you have a great product, not only on the concept board, but also in real life, that it does what you promise, that it's communicated and positioned in the best possible way. And of course, it's about optimizing the existing product all the time. And I will shortly give examples of each of these steps by cases we did with 4 different companies. So before you start ideating, I think what's important is that you have the best possible insights to start from. And an example here is what we recently did with Heineken, where we had to come up with a concept, a vision on the club of tomorrow. And in order to do that, we set up a community of 120 clubbers, youngsters from all around the world, and we ask them about what is clubbing today, what are great examples of clubs, what are your unfulfilled needs. And we did that by having great discussions with them, by asking them to keep a diary and to observe themselves and observe their peers. And all of this led to great insights, great wishes and unfulfilled needs from clubbers today that were fueled towards the designers that were working on that vision, on the club of tomorrow, on that concept club. So I think before you can start ideating, like we did in the Air France KLM case, you need great insights. And that's actually what we exactly did in this case as well. This co-creation ideation community had a preface in which we observed the behavior of frequent flyers when they are in transfer to generate ideas from that. So very important step before you start ideating is getting the right insights, and then you follow the methodology that we just explained to come up with a whole series of new concepts, new ideas for products and services. And afterwards, when you have validated them in a quantitative way, when you have like your dream team to go to the market with, it's very important that you take a look at the product. You actually almost ask people to use the product and to debug it. And it can be in even the real sense of the word. That's what we do all around Europe for Vodafone, where we really pre-test right before the launch all the new applications that they have built. So it's literally there about debugging. It's about making sure the product does what it promises to do, but it's also about how are we going to position this? How are we going to make sure it will be understood in the best possible way by the consumer? So what does the communication that will go with the launch need to tell, and is it understandable to people? So it's actually a 360-degree check of both the product or the service, the communication and the positioning right before the launch, a couple of weeks or a couple of months before we launch the product. And afterwards, it's of course about following the product when it's in the market. And after a couple of years, you probably need to fine-tune it a little bit. You need to optimize it a little bit. An example here is what we did quite recently for Marktplaats, which is a part of eBay. It's their local site in the Netherlands. Well, the site is already around for a couple of years. It's one of the oldest sites in the whole portfolio of eBay. And it was definitely time to update the platform and upgrade it with a couple of features, and also in terms of the look and feel of the whole platform, make it more contemporary. So what did we do? We talked 3 months with consumers, and we really dived into what is the platform today, what do you like, what do you dislike. We evaluated the ideas from the product development team. We fine-tuned them, we implemented new stuff, we asked people to beta test it, we asked them about how are we going to communicate all the changes to the people. So really we did some kind of check of everything, and we updated, upgraded everything towards the next level. So I think in this final part, we have not only shown that the methodology works, that it works to go out to consumers and co-create with them, but that it's not a question of are we going to work with consumers, are we going to do the ideation internally? It needs to be a joint effort. The power is in combining the two. We also learned that using this methodology is probably not enough. It will make sure that you have less failures, but in order to really be successful, you need to have great insights to start from. And once you have selected your ideas, you need to make sure you have the best possible go-to-market strategy, and you follow the product even years after the launch, and you give it an update and upgrade from time to time. And also in this case, it's a great idea to use the input of consumers, and research communities can definitely be a great methodology here to do so, as you saw from the different cases we just shared. So we think if you want to be a company that brings great innovations to the market, you almost need to talk in a continuous, structural way with consumers. And maybe we don't need to talk about co-creation with consumers, because that's like one-off. Maybe we need to talk about structural collaboration with consumers, meaning that we talk with them all the time, generate all the time great insights, ideate based on that, bring products to the market, and follow them up. So I think that's also how it goes. The speed of change these days, it all goes so fast that probably it's not the best idea to ideate every 2 years based on new insights, then put something in a funnel, and a couple of years later a product goes to the market. Probably by then your product is already irrelevant for most of the consumers. So we really believe in some kind of ongoing connection with consumers, and not calling it co-creation but structural collaboration, in the sense that you need to generate insights all the time, generate ideas all the time, and follow your products all the time, even months and years after the initial launch. And a final point that I want to make is that it's not only about following a product from start to finish, from the initial idea to a mature product and talking along the way all the time with consumers. It's not only about that structural collaboration part or thing, it's also about doing this in different countries and trying to make the best out of cultural differences. And what I mean with that is that a lot of companies make the mistake that they invent something in the West, somewhere in Europe or somewhere in the US, and they think that that will do the trick for everybody in the whole world, also in developing markets. And an example that I want to share is from a project that we did with Philips in China. It was to investigate the potential of one of the products, technologies they came up with in their labs in Eindhoven that need to solve the fact that you suffer from sleeping problems. And they wanted it to target towards young business people who have the money to buy this technology. One of the things we found in the community is that it's so important that yes, you have a great technology, but that you position it in the right way and that you communicate it in the right way. We could have positioned this product as, well, if you use our product, you will have a good night of sleep. If you have a good night of sleep, as somebody in business, you will perform better. You will outperform your peers and you will become a very successful person. And yes, that ambition is there in the Chinese market. Chinese people who are in business are very ambitious, want to reach the top as fast as possible. But there is also that cultural thing. The thing that you don't talk about ambitions, that you are not the person that wants to outperform somebody else or that wants to take somebody else's place within the company. And due to talking with people in the community, we found out that if we just position the product as you will outperform your peers, it would have been an absolute failure because nobody wants to be seen with the product. Nobody wants to admit that they use a product that needs to make sure that they outperform their peers, that they take their boss's place in the end. So this example shows, I think, that it's not only about inventing something and bringing it to the market in a very successful way in one country, that it will work in another country. Another example is what Heinz does, and it's from the same project, the Cold Sauces project. What we saw is that a new flavor that is absolutely successful in the north of Europe can be like an absolute no-go in the south of Europe, just because food culture is something that is attached to cultural things, and it's something that can be different very much on a local level. So I think the lessons from this whole webinar should not only be that you need to work together with consumers. I think that's clear by now. That you need to do it in a structural way. It's not one-off co-creation, it's structural collaboration. And that it's not because something is successful in one market that it by definition will be in another one. You need to talk to consumers because, or in the need, or in the way you position it, or in the communication you will do about it, cultural differences can be of great importance. So tap into the local knowledge, tap into the local culture, try to make your global innovation also locally relevant. And I think the great summary of this webinar is, or a great summary would be this quote of Peter Drucker, which is a management consultant. He says, "The aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well the product or service fits him and sells itself." So it's about understanding consumers, and that's where it all starts from. So success begins with talking to the consumers, not one time, but almost all the time. That's it from our end. I hope you enjoyed it, and we are now here to answer your questions. So looking forward to them. Right, first question is, what is the process for identifying the innovators and influentials to participate in the community? And is it the same project process for each project? And what are the characteristics that define innovators and influentials? Yeah, great question. First of all, what are the characteristics that define both groups? I think to put it a little bit simple, both influentials and innovators are very much into the category. They both have great knowledge about the category. They know what the trends are within the category. They know what's available. They know what people think of everything. The big difference between innovators and influentials, which are both, I think, lead users, is that innovators will use the product more for themselves because it's innovative. They want to try it. They want to experiment with it. So the drive for them to use something or to also redefine something is because they want to see what it brings for them. On the other hand, the influentials, they are very much in touch with the mass market and the needs and the wishes from the mass market. So they have a lot of knowledge about what's going on over there. And their main reason to adopt a new product is not because they want to experiment with it, they think it's cool, they think it's very innovative. No, they want to see what will this bring as a solution to the mass market. So both have great knowledge about the category, both are very much into it, but the one are more in there and innovating and experimenting for individual purposes. The other one are more there for social reasons. What we typically see is that an innovator will be a little bit more the one that comes up with a new idea, and an influential will be more the one who will fine-tune the idea, who will make make sure that the rough diamond becomes something that also looks nice and that is appealing to a lot of people. How do we screen them, or how do we find them? Well, we screen them in our screening questionnaire. So for every community we have a screening questionnaire, and in there we will also include a statement battery that tries to identify who is an influential and who is an innovator, and that's a statement battery that we developed over the past years based on a lot of research on research and scientific research we have done, amongst others, in collaboration with some academics from different universities. So it's that are the characteristics, and that's how we find them and how we screen them. Right. I don't know if there are other questions. Yes, we have a question. How many people would you recruit for a typical co-creation project? Thomas, one for you?
Well, typically we would involve between 50 and 150 people in co-creation projects. So that would mean if we take, for example, if we do take an ad hoc approach of one co-creation project with one clear objective, would probably be 50 people, a split 25 innovators and 25 influentials. If we're moving on towards a more structural collaboration, that would be more towards 150 people, where we can also use the community for different purposes, as Tom already mentions, in the flow of objectives, also to gain insights, to develop ideas, of course, to fine-tune, to implement ideas, and to further improve the customer experience. So between 50 and 150, the reason behind these numbers is that, of course, we need to know, okay, what is the maximum? And the maximum we look at, okay, how can we generate the optimum amount of social interaction between consumers on such an online co-creation. And there we see that if we have more than 150, which is the number of Dunbar, that it becomes really difficult to have a good qualitative interaction that neither we or participants themselves can distinguish clearly between each other, and as also the context, so the background of each participant is important in the interpretation of ideas. That's of course an important element. And then when we look at the bottom number of 50, that's actually based on, okay, when do we have enough, or what is the minimum of interaction we need to have a successful co-creation project?
I think another question will come in. Yes, there is another question. What if you are a company that is active worldwide? Do you have to recruit from a subset of countries, or can you combine countries in one project? Great question. I think it has to do with the language issue. What we see, what we know, is that if you can talk to consumers in their own language, it will work much better in the sense that they will be more active, give you more detailed answers with more nuance. So we always prefer to talk with consumers in their mother tongue. That being said, we have done projects in the past where the target groups, the educational level or the age group that we need to talk to is young enough, is educated enough that English is not a problem. And then we can do a community in English with people from different countries. So it's possible, but we don't prefer it, but we have done it. If the target group allows us to do that, we are okay with that. But I think you need to take into account, again, the differences between countries. For example, if you work in the food category, when we are talking about, for example, the cold sauces project that we did for Heinz, it will be important to also grab all the differences in tastes that people have that will lead to different innovations. For example, India versus the France, or China versus Brazil. If you look at a couple of product categories, some of the things those people will have as needs, or how their taste is developed when we are talking about the food category, will be totally different. So then we need enough consumers from each country to make sure that we can grasp all the differences and turn them into ideas. And then still it will be the case, or we will learn from the people in the community from the other countries if this product could also be a success in their country or not, from already the qualitative pre-selection. So that's to answer that question. Yes, we can do it if the target groups allow us to communicate with them in English, but still every time take into account the differences between countries. Another question, are brands becoming more interested in experimenting with co-creation via these types of communities? Are you seeing an acceleration of interest in the marketplace over the past 1 or 2 years? What barriers do companies' brands tell you about reasons why they won't try co-creation? Let's start with the last one. I think barriers, and I think Thomas positioned it pretty well with "this is so scary," that the nice visual. I think one of the things is they don't know what will come out of it, and they fear that they will lose control over the whole innovation process. So that's one of the biggest barriers. Like, we will lose control. What will come out of it? Will they take over our jobs? That are the kind of issues. And sometimes also a disbelief that consumers can really bring something interesting to the table. But I think if you follow the approach we have, it's rather structured. It's also based on insights, so just not co-creating, innovating without any guidelines. It's very much based on guidelines. We work based on insight platforms. We start from previous research, and we constantly try to bring consumers and people at the client side together. So I think using that structured approach, you can overcome a lot of these barriers. And I think definitely in the last 1 to 2 years, we see a pickup of this type of new methodologies. If I only look at what we do at InSites, we've grown 100% this year in 2012, and we now do more than 120 projects of this type a year for companies all over the world. So it definitely is picking up. I think we have time for a last question. Is there anybody, or is it somebody who has a last one? If not, it's a last one from Judith. How do you go about with confidential ideas? Thomas?
Well, that's indeed also one of the barriers we often encounter from the client side. One of the barriers before they can really believe in the concept of co-creation. And there we have, of course, in the recruitment process where we have the screener, a non-disclosure agreement which is accepted by these participants. And also on the community, we can have an additional screener, and actually depending on the type of confidentiality, sometimes we even have them checked on social media. So we have the social media scraped on the names of participants to check if they are not working in the same industry as we are developing ideas for, or if they are not working in research. And they're also in the beginning based on their spontaneous, so if we truly believe that they're honest, so they can select in which industry they're working. And then we of course screen out people who are working in the same industry, but we can do the additional check. But actually we, in the amount of projects we've done in the past years, we actually never encountered any problem with this. And when we move towards not only having them generate ideas, where it's actually tackled within our standard disclaimer, when we're moving towards feeding back ideas from the company, which is of course also a barrier, we have some built-in security that they cannot take screenshots of the visuals of the images we are sharing. So that's how we approach it.
All right, thank you, Thomas. I think that was it for now. If you have additional questions, feel free to get in touch with us. We are happy to answer all your additional questions in the coming days. This was our last webinar of 2012, but more to come from our side in 2013. So for now, we wish you a very happy end of year, and we wish you all the best for 2013, and we hope to see you again. Bye bye.
Okay, enjoy the holidays. Bye bye.